Kansas is geographically right in the middle of the contiguous United States. But despite being in the center, very few Americans call the Sunflower State home. And in fact, if we look just to the east and west respectively, we have Missouri and Colorado, each with about double the population of the state of Kansas. So why do so few Americans live in Kansas? Hello and welcome to Geography by Geoff. Today we're going to the literal geographic center of the contiguous United States, Kansas. Because while Kansas might be in the middle of the country, its population is roughly half that of Colorado and Missouri. In fact, even the large city that Kansas shares its name with is mostly within the state of Missouri. And as usual, there's a geographic reason for this. But of course, if you enjoy my videos, head on over to Substack for even more geography by me. Subscribers get access to extra geography articles, a podcast, and so much more. So if you want to support me and the content I make, Substack is the place. I'll see you there. Stretching across the heartland of America are the states of Missouri, Kansas, and Colorado. And despite being three completely separate states today, their origins all lie within the Manifest Destiny push to get Americans from the East Coast to the Western Territories. It's also worth noting that the three states bridge what I've called the empty belt of the United States, a belt which roughly separates the highly developed eastern part with the far more rural and sparsely populated western half. While all three states have a rich and deep history of indigenous peoples, including the Osage people in Missouri, the Kansa people in Kansas, also where Kansas's name comes from, and the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples of Colorado, the modern-day states have really been defined by three separate European colonizers. Missouri was first explored by Europeans in the late 1600s, specifically by Frenchmen Louis Jolliet and Jacques Marquette, who navigated the mighty Mississippi River. The French influence is still apparent in many of the state's place names, including the largest city of St. Louis, named for King Louis IX of France. Meanwhile, Kansas was explored quite a bit earlier in the 1500s with the arrival of Spanish conquistadors. This would be followed by French explorers who would claim the land as part of the Louisiana Territory in New France. Finally, Colorado, the most westerly of the three states, was also explored and settled by Spanish explorers, who named the region after the Colorado River's reddish silt. Spain would claim all of the land in the 1500s, and their influence is still present in many of Colorado's place names today. Of course, it would be the English, by way of American expansionism, that would bring the distinct Anglo culture to all three states in the 1800s. The early 1800s would bring dramatic change to all three states with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. This doubled the size of the United States overnight and led to a wave of exploration and settlement across the newly acquired territories, including Missouri, Kansas, and parts of Colorado. Missouri's path to statehood was particularly contentious due to the Missouri Compromise in 1820, which balanced the number of slaveholding and free states. But while Missouri would be entered into the Union as a slave state, Kansas would become a battleground over the contentious issue of slavery in the 1850s, earning the moniker Bleeding Kansas due to the violent conflicts between pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers. Kansas's statehood in 1861 came amidst the turbulence of the Civil War. Colorado did not achieve statehood until much later in 1876, the year of America's centennial, earning it the nickname the Centennial State. Through the late 1800s and early 1900s, all three states saw periods of growth and struggle. St. Louis, Missouri became a key hub for the railroad and a gateway to the West, a role symbolized by the famous Gateway Arch. Kansas developed a strong agricultural economy, becoming known for its wheat, corn, and cattle. Colorado, after a brief gold rush, diversified its economy with farming, ranching, and the growth of industrial centers like Denver and Colorado Springs. Today, Missouri, Kansas, and Colorado each maintain their unique character while sharing a common thread of history. But while Missouri and Colorado would each hit their stride in terms of population growth, Kansas would lag well behind both. But before we figure out why Kansas has so few people compared to Colorado and Missouri, if you're enjoying this video, hit that subscribe button. More fun geography videos are just a single click away. The geography of Missouri, Kansas, and Colorado is quite incredible. With its unique blend of huge river valleys, expansive plains, and towering mountains, the physical geography has significantly influenced the migration patterns and subsequent development of each of these states. Missouri, the easternmost of the three, is defined by its significant river systems, namely the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. These bodies of water provided a wealth of opportunities for early settlers, offering fertile soil for agriculture and serving as key transportation routes for trade and migration. Early French fur traders were drawn to these rivers, setting up posts that eventually grew into prominent cities such as St. Louis. Moving westward, Kansas's geography is dominated by the Great Plains, characterized by vast prairies and farmland. This landscape, while seemingly inhospitable to some, held promise for others. The Homestead Act of 1862 lured many settlers to Kansas with the promise of free land for farming. The fertile soils of the Kansas prairies was ideal for agriculture, leading to the development of wheat, corn, and cattle industries that continue to be a major economic driver in the state today. Additionally, the state's central location made it a key point of transit for settlers heading further west, contributing to its growth and development. Further to the west, Colorado's geography is one of stark contrast, with the eastern dry plains giving way to the incredible Rocky Mountain range. And it would be these mountains that would lure thousands of Americans to Colorado. The discovery of gold in the mountains in 1858 led to a rush of miners hoping to strike it rich, resulting in an influx of people that led to the establishment of many towns and settlements. Over time, these mining towns evolved, attracting visitors with their natural beauty and recreational opportunities. Meanwhile, the eastern side of the state, similar to Kansas, brought the promise of fertile farmland to many settlers. Moreover, Colorado's geography has played a significant role in the growth of certain industries. For example, the abundance of sunshine and wind in the eastern plains have made it a prime location for renewable energy production. If you haven't picked up on it yet though, one of these states is not quite like the others, Kansas, and it's had an indelible impact on the state's ability to grow, especially because Kansas was hit particularly hard by one devastating event in American history. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s left an incredible impact on the American Midwest at large, including the states of Missouri, Kansas, and Colorado. The decade-long environmental disaster, characterized by severe drought and devastating dust storms, essentially erased the agriculture industry from Kansas, and this had a direct impact on the populations of each of these states. Kansas, located in the heart of the Great Plains, was at the epicenter of the Dust Bowl. The state's reliance on wheat farming made it susceptible to the devastating effects of the drought and soil erosion. Many farms were abandoned as crops failed year after year, leading to widespread financial hardship. And this environmental crisis dramatically affected Kansas's population growth. The hardships of the Dust Bowl, combined with the economic impacts of the Great Depression, led to a significant outmigration from Kansas. Many farmers and their families, faced with financial ruin and unworkable land, packed up their belongings and headed west in search of better opportunities. The population loss during this time would slow Kansas's growth overall, and it would take many years for the state to recover. Missouri, however, while not as severely impacted by the Dust Bowl as its western neighbor, wasn't immune to the economic depression that swept the country during this time, and many western Missouri and Kansas farmers would travel to St. Louis in order to find work. Colorado, like Kansas, was significantly impacted by the Dust Bowl, particularly in the eastern part of the state, which is part of the Great Plains. The Eastern Plains experienced similar environmental devastation and population loss, but the more mountainous western parts of Colorado were somewhat insulated from the Dust Bowl's effects, due to its reliance more on the mountains for its economy than agriculture. Denver, between 1930 and 1950, would experience one of the largest growth periods in its history, going from about 288,000 people to 416,000 people. In the aftermath of the Dust Bowl, all three states underwent significant changes. Agricultural practices were transformed with a greater emphasis on soil conservation and sustainable farming. In many ways, the Dust Bowl was a catalyst for change for the entire country, but its lasting impact is still felt most acutely in Kansas. One thing that each of these three states share is that they each have kind of an equal claim to being the gateway to the West, which is the point at which the culturally western half of the country is separated from the eastern half. And while this title doesn't actually mean all that much, each state has acquired theirs in fairly different ways. Missouri's claim, perhaps the most well-recognized, hinges on the city of St. Louis, often specifically referred to as the Gateway to the West. This moniker originated from the city's geographic location on the western bank of the Mississippi River, making it a natural departure point for explorers, pioneers, and traders journeying westward. Also, it should be pointed out that the Mississippi River almost divides the country in half by itself. Regardless, the city's pivotal role in westward expansion is symbolized by the iconic Gateway Arch, the tallest man-made monument in the United States. Kansas, meanwhile, gained its status as a gateway due to its major trails that began or passed through it during the 19th century. The Santa Fe Trail, used for trade between Missouri and Santa Fe, ran through Kansas, as did the Oregon and California trails, which transported thousands of settlers to the fertile lands of the Pacific Northwest and the gold fields of California. Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, was a critical outfitting post for these journeys. The confluence of these significant trails positioned Kansas as a critical threshold on the journey westward. Colorado, though located further west than Missouri or Kansas, can also stake a claim to the Gateway to the West title. During the Pikes Peak Gold Rush in 1858, the phrase Pikes Peak or bust became a common slogan among those heading west in search of fortune. And the fact that the Continental Divide literally cuts right through Colorado, pretty close to Denver, gives it an extra geographic claim to the title. While the title Gateway to the West might conjure up a single point of entry, it can more accurately be viewed as a shared legacy among these states, as each one of them has played a unique and critical role in westward expansion. Kansas has far fewer people due to its unique location in between two major geographic features, the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River. Both Colorado and Missouri owe much of their population growth due to these two unique features. And the Dust Bowl of the 1930s certainly didn't help much either. But despite this, millions of people still call Kansas home today, and the state will likely continue to grow well into the future. I hope you enjoyed learning more about why Kansas has so few people relative to Colorado and Missouri. If you did, please subscribe to my channel. And if you want to watch more of my videos, you can do so here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.